Welcome to the channel, everyone. So this right here is the Erying Polestar. It's a motherboard with a baked-in 13900 HX CPU. Mobile chips being cooked into desktop motherboards, well, that's nothing new. What is new is the fact that this particular CPU is a beast. It has the potential to outshine some pretty beefy desktop processors. It is also around the same cost as a mid-level motherboard by itself. So there is the potential for cost savings if it performs. Going over the motherboard I/O real quick, we have DisplayPort, not sure which version, along with two HDMI 2.0 outs. Next to that is a BIOS reset button, 4 USB 3.2 ports, those are type A. Then there is a USB-C port and 2 more USB 2.0 type A's. There's also a 2.5 gig Ethernet, and it has Wi-Fi 6. From the two antennas here. There's also separate audio connections to round out the back panel I/O. Taking a walk around the motherboard, you have some fan connectors, ARGB, the 24-pin ATX power, USB 3.0 for front panel, 4 SATA connections, your usual front panel button connections. There's a Type-C, some more RGB, and a handful of additional fan connectors. And then to finish it off, there's a front panel audio on the far corner there. There are 3 total M.2 NVMe slots and room for only 2 sticks of RAM. Build quality is, you get what you pay for. Sharp corners on pretty much everything, and slightly more movement than you want in some areas. Now this thing is pretty cheap, so they needed to save some money somewhere, and the build quality definitely reflects that cost savings. Now, this does come with some downsides, and they may be deal breakers for a lot of you. The first is the fact that this has little to no support, like whatsoever, for anything. Returns, troubleshooting, BIOS updates, drivers, nothing, like nada, zip. You may see the occasional update pop up, but for the most part, you're on your own. The next big bummer is the fact that you are locked into this CPU forever. There are no upgrade paths here. The bonus is that the CPU is relatively new and jam-packed with cores, so you should be good for a while. And finally, you have the memory support. They say that you should use DDR5 5600 megatransfer per second, 16 gigabyte sticks, which I did, and it didn't work. Single 32? Nope. Dual 32? Nope. The only memory that I got to work was this 2x16 set from KingBank running at 7200, but not actually running at that speed though. I haven't tried pushing this past the default 4800. Maybe that will be in a future video, but for now, it's running, and I need to get the testing done on this before it breaks. Cooling is going to be from this, the Tishrik high-performance CPU cooler. It's not expensive. In fact, this is literally the cheapest tower cooler I could find on AliExpress, and it shows. But it does have RGB, so it'll do just fine. I hooked everything up and fired up Cinebench R23 and hardware info to check the temps under load. This thing hit a whopping 62 degrees during that run with this cooler. I mean, it makes sense, right? This mobile chip is meant to be cooled by the absolute minimum when it sits inside a laptop, and now I've given it some room to breathe. This, my friends, is a very great start. What wasn't so great was the score on Cinebench, 19,000. That's like 12600K territory. Not exactly the results that I'm looking for, because remember, this is meant to be a cheaper way to get some desktop performance, and the 12600K isn't exactly breaking the bank. So I did some digging and found out that the P cores were only hitting like 3.2 gigahertz under load, which was for sure lower than expected. Rather than getting my hands dirty with the BIOS settings, I decided to download Intel overclocking tool and let it do all the work. A quick auto overclock brought this up to 28,800 in Cinebench at a temp of only 67 degrees. Now we're cooking, and that brings this up to 13700K Cinebench results. Before I test this in a bunch of games, I'd like to see how this mobile setup would cost compared to its desktop equivalent. So I'm looking for something very specific here. Intel CPU, LGA 1700, DDR5 with Wi-Fi. Now that narrows it down quite a bit, and if you sort by price, this is the cheapest option. It's the Asus Prime B760M8. That's $140. Combine that with a 13700K price of $410, and we get $550. Unfortunately, I don't have a 13700 laying around, but I do have something that is comparable. the 12900K. That scored just under 28,000 in Cinebench and should serve as a good comparison for someone looking to save money by buying an older generation i9. The 12900K is 303 on Newegg, so with that $140 motherboard, you'd be sitting at $443 total. That's still quite a bit more than the Mutant Mobile motherboard here. So how do these two stack up against each other in games? Well, let's find out. If we look at the FPS averages in the handful of games I tested, these two trade blows, with titles like Red Dead Redemption and Cyberpunk favoring the 12900K, and the others showing the 13900HX as a clear winner. This is expected as the flagship mobile chip is usually on par with the previous generation flagship desktop. What is not expected is the power draw. You see, the 12900K has a base TDP of 125 watts and a max turbo power draw of 240 watts. The 13900HX, 55 watts base and 157 max. That means that at full tilt, the 13900 is barely over the 12900 base TDP. That translates to a huge reduction in cooling requirements. I mean, like I mentioned, I cooled this with the absolute cheapest tower cooler available, and under full load, it hit 67 degrees. For comparison, I put a 280mm AIO on the 12900K, and temps shot up to 90 degrees Celsius during the Cinebench runs. That thing needs a 360 AIO or a very beefy tower cooler to get the most out of it. The reason the 13900HX is able to stay so cool is because of this. Mobile CPUs don't come with an IHS like their desktop brethren, so to make this compatible with LGA 1700 coolers, the team at Erying had to stack this on top of the die. I'm not going to cut this in half, but it appears to be a vapor chamber of sorts, and it's extremely capable of wicking away heat from the die and delivering it to the cooler. Even with the small contact patch of this cooler and the very small and very annoying fans, the 13900 stayed plenty cool. I think the largest surface area of an AIO would help this even more, which could in turn allow you to run fans at a lower and quieter RPM. So let's wrap this up. If you're willing to get past the downsides of this mobile monstrosity, it may actually be worth taking a look at. The 16 efficiency cores and 8 performance cores puts this into 14900 or ultra territory. And with the ability to keep all those beautiful cores cool, you can unleash their full potential, albeit at a little bit slower clock speeds and slower results than those current generation flagship CPUs. You won't be setting any records with this setup, but for the money, it doesn't hurt to check it out, especially with how GPU prices are behaving. The $200 or so you save by going this route may be useful in getting the graphics card you actually wanted rather than settling for a bloated, tariffed shell. That's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this little adventure and learned something along the way. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.